What's the biggest red flag you overlooked because your significant other was hot? He had his own name tattooed on himself. I brushed it off as quirky. It's gotta be a joke, right? There's no way a real live person could be that comically narcissistic, right? Long story short, he eventually started playing recordings of himself singing and playing guitar while we were being intimate. The cherry on top was that he never reciprocated and was by far the worst lay I've ever had. Like, I did not know the depths of how disappointing it could be. And I'm not even going to go into emotional disappointment. I'm ashamed to admit that our relationship lasted almost a year because I was in denial that someone so good-looking could be such an irredeemable pile of crap. Edit. Just going to add that the listening to his own recordings incident was at the very end of the relationship, not something ongoing. By that point, I was already pretty sure he was a narcissist, and that finally confirmed it to me. I let so many red flags pass because I thought he was going through a hard time and just needed support. But he made it clear that no one mattered to him but him, a message displayed very clearly on his body in the form of his tattoo. I hope this stands as a cautionary tale for those inclined to nurture troubled people, because there are truly sucky people out there who will shamelessly take advantage of you, and the inner goodness you're sticking around for might not really be there. Next story, she was gorgeous. Blonde, curves like a Formula One car, legs for days. But just dumber than a box of rocks. After one date, I took her home. We walked past her drunk dad, passed out on the couch, and into her room. Then she said, "Wanna fool around?" My brain froze, and I saw my future, living in a trailer while she screamed at me, holding our babies. Sorry, I really have to study for the SATs I'm taking tomorrow. I kicked that test's ass, got a National Merit Scholarship, and went to engineering school, where I met and later married a much hotter girl. Next story, he moved way too fast and kept pressuring me to have a baby with him after knowing him for only 4 months. Oh boy. Edit. I forgot the best part. He made me take a pregnancy test in front of him during our breakup because, get this, he thought I was pregnant and was going to keep the baby from him. This happened in 2013. No babies happened, but I heard from a mutual friend that he started dating someone at the end of 2016. The girlfriend was still married, and they were married by May 2017. So good riddance is what I am saying. The furrow ruffed and thang thal is rediosis. Next story. He didn't talk much about his family except about how strict they were growing up. Not in a bad way, just strict. I never really met them, well, a couple of times, in public, never alone, and never for long periods in their homes. Cut to, I'm married to the one normal person in a family of completely bat-crap, insane, abusive, narcissistic a-holes imaginable. Red flags everywhere that he was hiding their true behavior in an unconscious attempt to seem normal. Next story, he was dumber than a rock. I swear to Christ he was the walking inspiration for Derek Zoolander. Walking and screwing were about the only things he could do without breaking something or causing something to go wrong. He attempted to wash my dishes with laundry soap, was apparently unfamiliar with two-knob showers, and couldn't figure out how to make a hot shower happen at my place until he asked. Minus could not, to save his life, remember where I lived or what apartment I was in, even after coming over 5 times. Thought the US president had the same unilateral powers and reign as a monarch. Confused the 4th of July with President's Day, assumed his work schedule was incorrect for scheduling him on President's Day as they must be closed, and simply did not go in. Consistently told me our star signs were plutonic together, still unsure what he meant. Manus, upon learning that shelter dogs were always fixed, asked me why there were so many puppies then. I made it through 3 weeks. If I'd have stayed with him, I'd have had to develop a heroic drinking problem just to cope. Good Lord, was he hot, though. I seriously didn't want to admit he was also profoundly dumb. Next story. He was very old-fashioned. I'm talking, serve me dinner after you cook all of it, do the dishes, and do it with me every night, regardless of if you have a fever or had a rough day. After we broke up, I contacted him because he had my vintage crock pot that belonged to my grandma, who had recently passed away. I said that he could just leave it outside and I could come get it without bothering him. He never answered me. He also had this pattern of not being able to stay single. He was in a serious 3-year relationship and met someone just a few days later. He started dating someone 3 days after we broke up. From what I know, he's still the same way. Edit. I stayed with him because we were both personal trainers and he was attractive. I tried to see something that wasn't there. He broke up with me, but I'm thanking him for that now. I'm engaged to the love of my life. Next story. Oh, there's a list I could write, but I'll just start with the ones I remember off the top of my head. If you ever hurt me, I'll hurt you. 3 weeks into dating. There was also, see what happens when I get jealous of people, they disappear, after my cat went missing. Oh, when I thanked the waiter for bringing me Red Bull, he said, "You know what? That was trashy. You look like friggin' trash." And I can't forget, after shoving me into a wall at a bar in Hollywood, he said, "If I had to off someone in order to make more money in the world, I would. Easy. Whiter tomes to the family." I was a friggin' 20-year-old reckless idiot and drunk 90% of the relationship and literally thought everything he said was dark humor, but he screwed me over majorly and I came to my senses. I've been happy, single, and thriving in life and my career ever since, so F him. Next story. While cleaning our apartment and vacuuming, I found a notebook under our bed. I didn't know what it was or if it should go in the closet or the office spare bedroom, so I took a quick peek. The first and only page I opened to be a handwritten mantra about how intimacy should be used as a device for control in a relationship, complete with scenarios and dialogue. We didn't last long after that. The relationship had a lot of problems, but instead of just ending it, she was weapons-grade hot and I was a dumb A in love for the first time. I instead slowly shut down over time until the relationship dissolved. I used to despise the guy she started dating right after me and married just a year after. Many years of maturing and, I'd like to think, gaining wisdom later, I just pity him if they're still together. Next story. I've just gone through a very rough breakup with a man I was engaged to, so I'll take the opportunity to vent and hopefully remove the rose-tinted glasses that are still somewhat in place. I'll list the flags from the beginning. Before I met him, my friend warned me a guy was going to come that would hit on me, and to ignore him because he treats women terribly. When we started dating, he warned me he was never going to want commitment before asking me soon after to be exclusive. He first told me he loved me after crying drunk on a night out because he was upset his friend had called him out on hitting on someone when he was supposed to be with me. Around early dating, he showed me an album of all the pictures he'd gotten women to send him, over 50 people that he'd kept as trophies. I still can't get them out of my head sometimes. About a month into the relationship, a distraught woman messaged me saying that she'd thought they were still together and I was a terrible person if I'd known this. He cried a lot and we didn't break up. When we were out anywhere, he'd constantly point out other women to me and talk about how hot they were, deeply hurting my self-esteem. A few months in, he exchanged messages with a girl. She wanted to spend the night with him, knowing he was in a relationship, so he used this as an opportunity to add more explicit pictures to his collection. I found out that instead of spending intimate time with me, sometimes he would hide in the bathroom for half an hour by himself. He was addicted to corn in a bizarre way, as in he'd watch it out while eating lunch or on his commute. His dad, a self-made millionaire with an obsession with materialistic gain and no compassion. The only time he talked to his 6 kids growing up was to yell at them or hit them. When I met him, he was married a few years into a marriage with an anorexic trophy wife that he'd confessed to my ex he was getting bored of. He was a nasty cheater and filled with rage and narcissism. While his mom, a nice person deep down that had been through more trauma in her life than I can even fathom. But she would never talk to her children without being prompted and basically allowed them to be raised by au pairs that would serially get fired because his dad would try to sleep with them before shipping them all off to boarding schools. 2 days before I went down to meet his mom, he met another girl at work, got her number, and convinced her they were in some sort of long-distance relationship and texted her every day, exchanged more pictures, etc. I found out when a very flirty message popped up on his phone one day from someone he'd saved as Dan. He cried a lot, said he wanted to stop his behavior. We didn't break up. A mutual friend of ours was going through intense depression while studying for her medical degree. He started to comfort her a lot via messages. It turned out they got flirty, exchanged pictures, there's a theme here, isn't there, and met up a couple of times and got very handsy. After I found this out, I was completely heartbroken, but he said he'd get help, start therapy, read corn addiction books, and we'd get couples counseling. He cried a lot, we didn't break up. The whole relationship was completely full of lies. Not just lies about what he was doing or if he'd got better, but pointless lies about funny things that had happened to him. It was such a compulsion. All his views and personality traits seemed to completely convert to mine. His political and social views and even diet changed to mine. When we met, he had his father's right-wing views and would frequently go hunting with him. A year or so in, he was a bleeding heart vegetarian like I am. He was incapable of dealing with any problem and would just bury it. If I was crying, he would bury his head in YouTube videos or a book, unless I asked him for comfort. He could be angry, hateful, drunk. Whenever I felt paranoid about his behavior or what he was up to, he would convince me I was being crazy and it was just my anxiety getting to me and make me feel bad for not developing trust in him yet. He was diagnosed as a sociopath before we met. And despite all this, I'm still heartbroken. We didn't work out and I still miss him. I can't wait to be over him and have the possibility of a healthy relationship. Next story, legit crazy religious chick. We dated around the time Haiti was hit by a massive earthquake. There were reports of jails collapsing and women and children being attacked by escaped inmates. She said it was God punishing them for practicing witchcraft in the past. I genuinely asked her if she meant that the children deserved whatever happened to them. She said yes, and the relationship didn't last much longer after that. Next story, her decision to switch from physics to a major with a significantly lower pay expectation and an even smaller amount of coursework after she found out that my parents' only children here are loaded. Note, I'm deliberately not naming the major to avoid insulting or upsetting anyone who was part of this field, but statistically speaking, it absolutely does not pay as well as what she would have been making. We had been dating for about 7 months, and although they are very well off, my parents aren't super flashy in their lifestyle. They got to that point through smart investments and a good measure of thrift, selectively prioritizing what to spend money on. She'd never really seen a first-hand display of Mom and Dad unleashed, as it were, mainly because we usually saw them when they came to visit us, not when we went to visit them. When I graduated college, they had just retired, so we all ended up going on a high-end cruise to celebrate the joint occasions, and I should have realized that something was very wrong when the ex started looking nearly cross-eyed with excitement when she realized that they were paying for an all-inclusive 2-week vacation, suits and all. She was giddy at the idea of someone dropping roughly $5,000 on her, so giddy that she just rushed off to explore the ship and didn't even bother to say thank you. Literally less than 24 hours after that, she made the questionable decision to buy a $400 glass sculpture that she spotted in the freaking tourist trap cruise ship shop and charged it to the freaking room. That should give you an idea of how things started to go. The rest of the trip was a constant fight to restrain her from buying random, useless, expensive stuff. She was absolutely drunk on the idea that she was dating someone with money, except I did not have money at the time, as my student loan bills can attest to. It was like she was already spending the money that my parents are leaving me when they pass, as though we were married or something, which, thank God, never happened. Dad finally pulled her aside and gave her an intense talking to after the 3rd attempted drive-by purchase, and that's where the retard master pass makes its appearance. Now here's the stupid part. I ignored it solely because, after she got talked to, she decided to make up for this BS move by very suddenly deciding that several things she'd previously declared off-limits were now fair game. Let's just say the rest of the cruise went very well and my brain was essentially shut off. Looking back, honestly, I don't think I've ever felt so manipulated after that. Once the cruise was over, she noticeably changed her attitude toward both me and our relationship, as well as her overall views on money. In her head, we were somehow already married, and my parents had kicked off, leaving us with a pile of cash that we simply didn't have. Date nights went from a movie and a burger to her suggesting we eat at upscale, very nice places. On top of that, she was suddenly a travel bug and wanted to get out of town almost every weekend, generally on my dime. It was suddenly totally normal for her to grab more than $200 worth of expensive organic specialty groceries at a time, when previously we'd eaten relatively healthy but still cheaply whenever possible. But, like an idiot, I was still paying because I legit loved her at the time. It came to a head, however, when at the beginning of her junior year, she was 2 years younger than me and was just getting done with all her general education and non-major courses. She suddenly announced that she was drastically shifting focus and changing to a major that is notorious for being significantly less work-intensive than her previous physics workload, as well as having an extremely low pay scale relative to other fields, especially compared to working as a physicist. As soon as she said this, everything sort of clicked in my head, and it was firmly cemented into place when she uttered one of the most mind-blowingly selfish things I have ever heard come out of another human being's mouth. I kid you not. Well, physics was always about getting a good job for me, but we don't really need to worry about that, do we? I'm doing this because it's interesting and I don't want to have to work as much as I have been. I struggled to reconcile that for a solid 2 weeks before finally calling it and breaking up with her. It was incredibly messy, but she was well on her way to becoming beyond toxic. Next story. Any pleasant, romantic, sweet, loving, or gratuitous thing I did, he would treat me like crap for it. When I showed zero interest in him because he was being such a D-head, he would treat me like royalty. He'd pull out every stop, every trick in the book to romance me and make me forget about it. When I was sweet back, it turned him off. The more I ignored him and rejected him for being a total a-hole, the more he wanted me. It was this weird game. After a while, I grew tired. I didn't want to play anymore. Next story, his ex cornered me at my place of work right as I started hanging out with him, and she warned me about him. I brushed it off and wrote her off as crazy. Sure enough, literally everything she said came true. Her warning always lived in the back of my mind and eventually helped me get the nerve to kick him out. I've always wanted to run into her again and thank her and apologize for calling her crazy. Next story, alcoholism. We were both young. I didn't think of it until I started to reflect on it about a month into the relationship. We had literally drunk every single night we were together, and we were together every single night without fail for 3 months. She would either pick me up from work and have a case of beer in the back, or I would go visit her at her place and she would already have a bottle of wine on the go. The biggest red flag should have been the first 2 nights we ever officially hung out. I picked her up from her friend's house because she needed a way home. The entire way home, she just kept telling me how much she wanted to spend the night with me and how bad she wanted me. She couldn't even keep her eyes open. I told her how uncomfortable I was because she was so drunk and I was so sober. The next day, I told her what transpired and she would tease me and call me a wuss for not doing it. It was such a huge conflict in my morals. It took me 3 months to finally walk away from that and almost $3,000 later, but I'm glad I was able to. No one was worth that kind of mental pain. Next story. Where do I start? His drinking problem? His volatile relationship with his ex-wife? He's never single for over a decade. Edit. I feel like I worded that last point awkwardly. Since his teens, he's always had the next lady lined up before ending the relationship he was in. It was a bit different with the end of our relationship as the person he had fallen in love with was married and related to him. Next story. He was a dealer who lied about literally everything, had me always sharing my location with him, and constantly cheated. Since then, I've gotten my self-esteem out of the trash can, but I still am so mortified when I think of how low I was and how he took such advantage of that. But he was so hot. Next story. It was Valentine's Day and I drove her about an hour and a half to this nice Indian restaurant in the state's capital. We really don't have a large Indian population anywhere, so we have 0 restaurants like it in town. She was also flirting with vegetarianism and I wanted to support that. After a very nice meal, the owner of the restaurant came to our table to ask how everything went and even complimented her on her necklace and asked kindly if he could see it. He remarked that it was very nice but casually set another necklace on the table in front of her and said that perhaps she would look better in that one. Surprise! It was my gift. I had planned the whole thing. On the way home, she was very quiet, and when we got back to my place, she said she had to take care of some things and left kind of quickly. When she called me about a half hour later, she admitted that she was confused by the whole thing and that she didn't have a nice time and that she worried about us because we were so different. She wasn't used to eating fancy food and dressing nicely just to have a meal, and since I went through all this trouble, I must have done something wrong, so on the way home she threw the necklace out of the window and kept driving. I calmly asked where she had thrown it, and spent about 2 hours going up and down that particular stretch of road until eventually, at about 2 a.m., found it in someone's yard, and all I did was give it back to her and told her that I loved her and that she had nothing to worry about. A few months later, she would leave me and confess that she had cheated on me at least 6 times and that she wasn't attracted to me, but the intimacy was great and she wanted to be single so that she could pursue other things. Next story, she was super into her looks, wore lots of makeup, talked negatively about other women's looks, watched the Kardashians as much as humanly possible, talked about Instagram constantly, and oh my God, as I'm typing this out, I can't even remember what the hell we ever did while we were in the same room together. As soon as intimacy got boring, our relationship was over. Makes sense now, but at the time I tried like hell to make it work, yet simultaneously, I had no idea what to do. Next story. I dated a charismatic man who was so much fun. Let's call him Eddie because that's his name. Eddie was the definition of the life of the party. He had wild stories for days. We would sit at a bar and he knew someone everywhere we went. Only men, though, and most of his stories involved a crazy woman. I didn't fully realize that until later. Eddie ended up getting blackout drunk and violent one night. He aggressively kept me in his apartment by force for hours. I thought he was going to off me. I tried calling 911 and blurted out the address as fast as I could, but he grabbed my phone before I could finish and sinisterly grumbled to the dispatcher, "She's fine." He took my phone and my keys. He smashed me into walls, grabbed my face, and roughed me up. I eventually escaped, and he was charged with assault, false kidnapping, interference with a phone during an emergency, and disorderly conduct. Don't trust a guy who has more than 10 crazy girls in his past. Next story. I have some stories. Dude number 1 said he saw things and got intimate with me while I was asleep when we'd never gone that far in any other situation. Then he hurt himself when I woke up and was mad. Dude number 2 had an extremely crappy neck tattoo that he let his drunk friend do on him as practice since he'd only ever done one. It was of a cross, but you couldn't tell. Dude number 3 told me he'd never trusted someone enough to date them, but he trusted me to not break his heart or leave him, ever. This was day number 2 of dates. Dude number 4 picked me up in his car for the first date, then started speeding at 95 plus and swerving through traffic down the 101 in SF, talking about how much he wanted to end it all and how romantic it would be to pass away together. This isn't even scratching the surface. I've stopped dating. Next story. She could barely hold a conversation for more than a sentence or two, but damn, she was beautiful. Seriously, one of the dumbest people I've ever met, but dated her for about 10 months. I should clarify, she didn't have a problem or anything. We met in college. She had very little useful knowledge of any kind. I learned a lot about what I value in a relationship from this woman. Next story. My intuition was that he wasn't a good person. He swept me off my feet in every way. My attraction to him was off the charts, but there was always some feeling that something was off. Turns out, he has narcissistic personality disorder. Our whole relationship was a lie. I feel so hard and so fast that I didn't trust my initial reaction. When you're wearing rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags. Next story. An ex-partner and how much she drank on a daily basis and how often she got completely blitzed, but she was a very attractive, stereotypical Swedish woman, tall, blonde, legs to her neck, etc., who made out like a bandit in a divorce, talking serious money here, and was great in bed. She was the loud and outgoing life of every fancy party with a 7-figure house and a matching bank account, but she was also a raging alcoholic who could knock back a solo cup of Grey Goose and keep on going. It took nearly a year for my blinders to come off and for me to both recognize and accept how toxic that relationship was becoming. Hot banging and money can only carry so far, and eventually you're forced to wake up and realize that person will darken your world and not give a crap. Last I heard, she'd hooked another millionaire like her ex and they moved to Melbourne, Australia. Next story, she said, "I'm not looking for a relationship. I don't have a lot of friends, and I never talk to my parents." She was a very attractive and sweet girl. Life had dealt her a series of bad cards, and I thought I could help her through it. It never works out, and it's sad that this is all some people will ever experience. She cut things off with me because she feared that she would hurt me. I'm not sure how I felt about it at the time, but she probably did me a favor. The last time I talked to her, she was severely depressed and still going through some things. I offered her a listening ear if she ever needed someone to talk to, and she still contacts me occasionally. Next story, my ex and I had an argument as we were going to bed. Realizing that we weren't getting anywhere, we decided to deal with it in the morning. I fell asleep and she kept fuming to the point of her turning towards me and punching me in the kidneys. I woke up unable to breathe. I don't react well to violence and just got dressed and left the apartment for night. She apologized in the morning and we talked it out and in some warped logic agreed that since she is so petite, her hitting me was not a big deal. Nah, it is a big deal and there is no justification for violence. Next story. He told me he was writing a book about himself viewed through the lens of women that he'd had slept with. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was a big red flag that spelled narcissist. He thought of other people, particularly women, as a cast of characters in his life. He also insisted he was very religious, but said several things that implied that he thought God and him were more like peers. I'm not religious myself, but I'm pretty sure I know how that chain of command is supposed to go. Next story, she was bipolar and schizophrenic. She'd get immensely paranoid if I even had any female friends. She was always threatening to break up with me and did on multiple occasions, but I stuck through it because I was madly in love with her. She drove me crazy. I grew up across the street from her grandparents and she lived there for a little bit with her mom while we were growing up, but I never met her until I was in college. I fell in love instantly. Dark brown hair, the most beautiful brown eyes, and the cutest smile and laugh I've ever seen or heard. She was short, probably around 5'4" or so, skinny yet curvy, really cute butt. I loved every inch of that girl. The good days were amazing. The bad days were miserable, but I really loved that girl with everything I had, man. I would have done anything for her. She was my rock. Next story. She had paid $15,000 for a VIP millionaire's dating service plan for 5 scheduled dates with highly vetted, successful socialite men with at least $2 million net worth and an income of no less than $250,000 per year. We started dating and she still had one more date left when we met. Idiots here let her go on that last date. Spare your breath. I know the level of stupidity we are talking about here. We got married. 6 years later, I got bent over the mediation table, brutally satirized, and she took pretty much everything I owned. Next story. One of the first things I remember her saying to me was to check out her camel toe. She had a little camel tattooed on her pinky toe. She was a club dancer once upon a time. She was 7 years older than me and just went through her second divorce, both military dudes. All my friends saw straight through her being a total hoe bag and told me I could do better. But I was a naive 19-year-old and totally knew better than everyone else. She was insanely hot. She was also insane, but for the most part a sweet girl. We only met up for about a month, and I put protections, thank God. Made it out mostly unscathed. Just a bit less money, and she stole my favorite hat. Next story. The biggest red flag I overlooked because she was hot is that we have completely different attitudes about life. I want to travel the world and be a bartender and rock and roller and play video games. She wants to settle down and have a family and talk about our 401k. She's so great and tries to compromise for me, but honestly, it just isn't working. 2 years into our marriage, I realized she is so much more mature than I am, and I don't see myself getting to her level of maturity anytime in the next 5 years or ever. And the worst part of it all is that she's madly in love with me for God knows what reasons, and she doesn't think she can find anyone else. She's so great, I just don't think I'm the one for her. And the more time goes on, the more I wonder if I want to be. You know, when we got married, I just thought it'd be super cool because then we could be intimate all the time, play video games together, I'd teach her how to play guitar, and we'd have nights out on the back porch drinking single malt scotch and classic cocktails. But instead, I got being in bed by 9 p.m. and up by 6 a.m. watching NBC and drinking crappy Moscato. I think we both had completely different expectations of each other. Next story, she's got borderline personality disorder. She's a good person but can't handle any kind of mild, normal life stress. She explodes in fits of pure hot white rage at the drop of a hat. I take a deep breath before opening the door when coming home from work, not knowing which version of her is waiting inside. It's gotten worse over the years, and she refuses to recognize that she has any issues. It's always everyone else. She lost her phone. Why didn't I tell her to put it somewhere safe? What an idiot she married, etc. Just get out, you say. Sure, but I will not abandon my kids to this without me there to protect them. They need me. My life is over. I live for them. Next story, my ex-wife said to me on our first date, I finkkled gefemme his kamermid, then a riur dira found. I have a boyfriend, but we are basically broken up. Basically, her relationship with me began prior to ending her previous relationship, like some sort of relationship insurance policy. Long story short, we ended up getting married, and then after a few years, she suddenly wanted a divorce because she felt like she had so much left to experience in life. Yay, she married another guy about a month after our divorce was finalized. However, I've heard she is single again if anyone is interested. Next story, she was engaged to someone else. She was the prettiest girl I'd ever seen. She checked all the boxes on my list. We worked together but were doing freelance work. She talked to me about her life. A lot. She told me that her fiancé drank a lot. He stayed out all night. He had no aspirations to speak of. He didn't treat her very well. He was verbally abusive. And I was very into this girl. That was 18 years ago. We got married 10 years ago. She's asleep, snuggled up next to me right now, and our 9-year-old daughter is snoring in the next room. Yeah, I stole her. No regrets. Next story, he literally had no friends in the real world, just internet and social media friends. So, he wanted to make friends with all my friends immediately upon meeting them. He also met his 2 ex-wives online and married them within months of meeting in real life. I was smothered by him. Within 6 weeks, he loved me to death. Nope, bye. Next story, my ex deleted pictures of singers I liked at the time like Andy Biersack, Vic Fuentes, etc. because he said they could show up here and ask you to marry them. You're not allowed to have any pictures of guys on your phone. Kinda the same thing when my friend asked me if I'd ever date a girl and I said 100% Ruby Rose, absolutely love her. And my ex jumped in by saying, you only like her because she looks like Andy Biersack. You're not allowed to see anything with her in it. Mind you, she only looks like Andy because she has the same haircut. He also wouldn't let me have any guy friends, but I was 15 and dumb. Next story, we had been dating for a couple months. We drove to Boise to see her family. When she introduced me to her father, he leaned in and whispered to me, run now and never look back. I laughed because I thought he was joking and never gave it another thought. 4 years later, we are separated. She has some dude living with her in the house I am paying for while I am sleeping on my friend's couch. One day I brought the kids over to see the grandparents. We got to talking about her and he reminded me that he warned me and I didn't listen. I should have listened. Next story. She was playfully jealous of every single other woman in my life, even my therapist. She even got to the point to tell me, if you're happy with me, you shouldn't need any therapy. Eventually, it stopped being playful, and every time I complimented any woman ever, even on TV, she would start crying. Eventually, I cut ties with any girlfriend I had and stopped doing therapy. In the meantime, she'd let other dudes text her because she felt sorry for them so she wouldn't cut them off after rejecting them, even though they were still trying to get in her pants. One of them was a total creep that would tell her he was better looking than me and he wanted to impregnate her. I saw the chat one night. She got drunk and had to call her mom and asked her to cut that guy off. She said she would, but she didn't. Eventually, she arranged a date to cheat on me. I figured there was something wrong because of her attitude. I stopped her, and she somehow convinced me that it was my fault because I wasn't trying hard enough to make her feel loved. After a couple of those shenanigans, I broke up with her. She got a new boyfriend after a month. He'd been talking to her for like 6 months. She's a Catholic. She is very attractive, but never again. Next story, she would sleep all the time. All the time. According to my friend, she'd been seeing a doctor about it. But this girl slept too much for it to be a normal thing. When my friends began pushing me toward her, I couldn't say no because I was a virgin at the time. She also blew kisses at me and winked with that smile just to flirt, and I couldn't say no. 2 things hit me when I began dating her. First thing, I went to her house and she would not let me into her room. Strange, especially when her parents weren't home, but I understood. I didn't push anything. I went into the kitchen and saw a wide array of medications. That's interesting. Must belong to a family member or something. Second thing, she started to get distant and I was feeling sick about it. She didn't tell me why, at least not right away. It wasn't until we visited her house for the 3rd time for a movie night that all of the clues came full circle. We were watching pirate radio, and of course she was sleeping again, so I decided to go take a piss. I left the room, and upon reaching the top of the stairs, I closed the door and suddenly found myself standing in the silence of her living space. That's when my curiosity took over. I looked up toward her bedroom, you could see it from the bottom of the stairs, and saw that the door was closed. All right, as usual. I then walked into the kitchen and took a good look at the pill containers. Not 1, not 2, but every single one of those, maybe 6 containers had her frigging name on them. I don't remember the types of medications, but I knew right out of the gate that they were all meant to counteract each other. She was neck deep in a chain of medications that had been, at least in part, messing her up and making her eternally tired. But I was still confused. Why was she taking these in the first place? Which of these medications did she start with? The antidepressants? The energy booster? The sleep aid? Later that night, I ended up asking one of my buddies out of the blue, "Why is my ex so distant lately?" This girl showed me no love at all, which was unusual for her. My friend told me that she'd been essayed before and that she gets scared after being intimate for the first time. He was emphatic about how she would go to every extent to avoid intimacy, the closed bedroom door. I then went on to ask about the meds, thinking there might have been some link, and wouldn't you know it, she began taking them soon after the essay, as my friend informed me. Apparently, the doctors weren't getting it right, so she was prescribed other medications to balance things out, to compensate, whatever. I thought she was just tired. Next story, he called me drunk at 4 a.m. on multiple occasions to tell me how much he regretted cheating on his ex-girlfriend and nearly slipping and dying on ice. He also talked about how he fantasized about doing it with my friends. We broke up because he ghosted me for a week until I was crying, texting him asking what I did wrong. He said, "Sorry, I just can't be attracted to people I've slept with too many times," and that was that. Real talk. It's honestly tragic to see how easily freshman me truly believed this was my fault and that I just wasn't doing enough to make him love me. Next story, he had 2 kids he wasn't allowed to see but wanted to get me pregnant too. I was 18 and planning on going to university. He was 30. He told me not being able to see his kids was because his 2 baby mothers were crazy, his words, and that all he wanted was to see them. Turned out he was an abuser. He would act inappropriately with me in my sleep. I'd often wake up but pretend to stay asleep so it would be over quicker, because he didn't like it with consenting women. He got me kicked out of my home, told me being essayed by other people meant I must have been asking for it, and wouldn't let me see family or friends, yet flirted with people in front of me. He told me he loved me after one date. I wasn't allowed to go out with friends, have male friends, or do anything fun without him. He constantly accused me of cheating. He'd make his hands shake and claim that only happened when he was being lied to. When my doctor was concerned that I might have a brain tumor, I reached out to my brother for support. He accused me of cheating and said I was making it up. He was genuinely terrifying. I ended up with PTSD from repeated assaults. When we broke up, he posted my deepest secrets on Facebook, attacked my family, and threatened to reveal more if they defended me. F you, Gareth. Next story. She posted crap memes on her Facebook page that said things like, "If you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best." In other words, putting up with my BS means giving me carte blanche to be a huge bish. Immature women who use other people as doormats because they have crappy self-esteems are not cool. If you find yourself being with a woman who posts crap like this on their Facebook feed, run, because if she has that sort of attitude, it means she doesn't respect people very much. Plus, cliché crap like that just makes me cringe too. Next story. I hooked up with this girl on a night out, took her back to mine, and had a night of fun. Anyway, we carried on seeing each other and eventually got together, which is around the same time she confessed to me she had mental issues. I overlooked this because she was hot and I was clearly punching above weight. Anyway, flash forward 8 months into our relationship. I gave her a good morning text as I usually did. She replied with, "Who's this?" I assumed she was playing some weird joke, so I brushed it off and continued the conversation. Did not receive a reply, which was unusual for her, so sent her another text maybe 6 hours later, no reply. Flash forward to about 8 p.m. I get a call off a number I didn't recognize. Turns out it was her Nana, who she lived with. She said, "Don't panic, but my girlfriend's name has forgotten the past 10 months of her life." Anyway, to cut a long story short, we got together in those 8 months, so she effectively woke up one morning and thought the current date was 10 months previous. She forgot who I was and didn't even know she had a boyfriend. Very upsetting and confusing for both of us. Next story. She was insanely jealous. Like when we first started dating, she found out I was hooked up with a friend of mine because of a game of Never Have I Ever. She got upset at that, even though it was in the past and like a one-time thing when we were drunk. Then she got even more upset one day when she came to hang out in my room like she had done for the past 2 years and watched TV with me alone. Then there were times I caught her going through my phone and computer, and she almost got into a fight at a party because she thought this girl was trying to dance up on me. Next story. He surprised me for my birthday right before we started dating. Super sweet, right? Later, I overheard a conversation between him and my former best friend that went something along the lines of not feeling bad for cheating on their exes because they found it hard to break up with someone. Nearly 2 years later, he cheated on me because he didn't know how to break up with me. That, and the "I don't do relationships" line. Next story. Told me she was essayed by her ex-boyfriend on our second date. I was 20, she was 25. After I broke up with her, I heard rumors she was telling people I essayed her. After further investigation, she has done this with several ex-boyfriends, all of whom broke up with her. Fortunately, everyone knew how I was and how she was and knew she was lying. Keep in mind, this is a second-grade teacher. It blew my younger mind that there were really people in this world like that. Scared the crap out of me. Glad I learned the lesson early. Next story. She told me not to tell anyone that we were dating. I know I'm in the future too, but I was so excited that we were even together, and she told me she had this other boyfriend back home, but they were in the process of breaking up. It was a difficult time because his parents were sick. I tried to understand that until I was invited to Amanda's house. This was the confirmation I needed. I was going to be crowned with the main boyfriend. So I got into my mom's station wagon and drove to Amanda's house. I went up to her front door, and there's Amanda, and there's her parents, and it's going well. A couple of hours in, this guy named Scott comes over. I'm assuming he's a family friend or relative, but I start to realize certain similarities between Scott and Amanda's other boyfriend. They're both in their first year of college, they both play competitive wrestling, and it's dawning on me that I'm hanging out with my girlfriend's boyfriend. Next story. I feel I may be overlooking some red flags, but I'm okay with that. She's mean sometimes, like a third of the time. She doesn't drink or smoke, so I must pick up the slack. She likes some stupid TV shows. She leaves weird hair clumps on the walls in the shower. Her Scrabble skills are mediocre. She leaves the door open when she uses toilet. But I love her. She's double-take beautiful. I get laid all the time. Designated driver wherever I go. She makes good money. Her body looks photoshopped, like it's not real. I mean, I see her walk by sometimes and I forget everything. She loves our dogs. Also, while I consider myself to be awesome, she's way out of my league. Next story, self-confident to the point of willful ignorance. As soon as the getting to know you phase waned, everything I knew was wrong, like passively dismissed without discussion or explanation wrong. I was treated as an idiot that just didn't know better. Paleo diet? It's all natural. You can't consume anything that cavemen didn't have. No legumes, including peanuts or anything containing peanuts, nothing that wasn't inherently natural, and absolutely no daily maintenance medications or supplements. It was far more extensive, and there was zero discussion, just parroting of blogger testimonials. I have no allergies, weight issues, health issues, nor any need, reason, or desire to participate. I was forced to participate no matter how disruptive it was to my, at the time, already chaotic daily routine. If I corrected her about something she was mistaken about, it was a fight about how I had to constantly one-up her, including dangerous misinformation with mountains of scientific proof. No matter how I engaged, no matter how charismatic and tender, I was either wrong or I was an a-hole for challenging her. God forbid I ever do it with another person present. CrossFit could do nothing wrong. It was the ultimate end-all be-all fitness regimen and nothing else compared. Form was touted but never practiced. Injuries from poor form or overexertion were just the body becoming tougher. But the best or worse, we never landed on the moon. It's all fake. A close relative, supposedly part of the NASA program at the time, shared this secret with her at a young age and on his deathbed. Meanwhile, I have endless professional mentors, contacts, and colleagues who were close to those involved in the Apollo missions, as well as ongoing NASA and other organizations currently. But she was hot until it just wasn't worth it anymore. Mistake 2. She was rarely ever honest with anyone around us. We spent nearly all our time together or within easily verifiable proximity to each other, very busy, so she led me to believe that we were completely candid with each other. But to keep appearances or spare feelings, little white lies were told to friends, family, and close confidants. Then I later caught her in an uncharacteristic dismissal or diversion. It became clear that I was never in the inner circle of truth. Only she was. If they lie to everyone around you, they're lying to you too. Next story. She told me she loved someone else. 2 days after I moved to her country, where I didn't know anyone or speak the language, and it was my birthday. She wanted to get back together 6 months later. She wanted to get married 6 months after getting together. We stayed married for 10 years, with me forgiving her for many things until I got the message. Next story, got with a girl who was a bartender at a restaurant chain in which I was a regional director. I was young, she was hot, and against my better judgment and in blatant disregard for the rules, shortly after hiring her, we started sleeping together. She left the dude she was dating to basically just have a good time with me when I was free or in town. Red flag 1. Shortly thereafter, I took a GM position and decided to move in with my brother, and we got a house close to where we worked. Not long after that, this girl needed a place to stay because she couldn't get along with her sister. Blinded by how hot she was and the amount of alcohol we drank regularly, I agreed to let her stay with me. Red flag 2. We went out constantly. I had lots of money, and we drank together, had dinner, and a good time pretty much daily. Problem was, she was a terribly unstable drunk, and nights constantly wound up with us either having fantastic banging or fighting and arguing, in which she'd usually become quite violent and physical. Flag 3. Shortly after she moved in, she became pregnant. She decided we'd have a child, though I really didn't want one. We're both attractive and in good health, so I knew our son would be good-looking and healthy, and figured we could reconcile and work on our differences. Mind you, I only knew the girl for maybe 3 months at this point. Flag 4. After our son was born, she constantly came home late, said it was work, found her out at bars with random dudes. Ex-boyfriends parked at the end of my driveway at 3 a.m. with her talking to them. Basically, she constantly was cheating while I worked my bum off and took care of our son. At this point, I just became a babysitter and bill payer to her and was completely stripped of my dignity, though I stuck it out to ensure my son was well taken care of. Flag 5. It all came to a head when, after I left her, she showed up drunk at my new house at 4 a.m. and smashed all the windows on my car and flattened my tires. I came outside, and that's when she turned me on with a knife and stabbed me 5 times, to the point where EMS had to field dress me because of substantial blood loss and wounds. Flag 6. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Long story short, don't have kids, don't date cheats, don't let alcohol influence your emotions, and stay far away from hot, crazy bitches. Now all the smoke has settled, and 3.5 years later, I haven't seen my son because her family basically annexed me from his life. I was sick of fighting, so I gave up once her mother called and said they all want to move forward with their lives and they'll never come after me for anything, including child support for our kid. In hindsight, I made the wrong choice, but it's far too late now because I get trapped by the courts for back child support and lose 60 to 65% of my wages for God knows how long. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.